Good day, everyone. This is Turning Point Tutorials. I am Samuel Atta. We have come once again to have another wonderful lecture. We are looking at economics today, and we want to take it from the beginning. We'll be looking at the meaning of economics and related concepts. Okay, when we say the meaning of economics, we'll go straight to talk about the definition of economics. Well, as you know, economics is actually a broad discipline, and its broadness and has made economics in different times to define this subject matter from different points of view. Now, the following are some of the numerous definitions of economics. Now, we look at economics by Adam Smith. Economics by Adam Smith is defined as an inquiry into nature and the causes of wealth of nature. I want to repeat that. Adam Smith defined economics, said economics is an inquiry into nature and the causes of wealth of nature. Then another scientist again came up with some definition, that is John Stuart Mill. I just gave definition of Adam Smith. John Stuart Mill. That's the second definition. By John Stuart Mill, we'll see economics as the practical science of production and distribution of wealth. Very brief. It's a practical science of production and distribution of wealth. Then we look at Davenport, another economist. Davenport. These are authorities in economics I'm mentioning. Davenport went on to give his own definition. Davenport said that economics is a science that treats phenomena from the standpoint of price. He said that economics is a phenomenon that treats economics from the standpoint of price. Okay, so it's looking at economics, picking price like a pivot to other areas. Then, if you go down to other definitions, you can see different authorities in economics that give the various definitions in economics. We can go on and on to mention, but then, because of time, we want to look at one of the economists. That's the man Robert Lionel, who gave a definition of economics, and which today is widely accepted. And what did he say? Professor Robbins gave a definition of economics when he said that economics is the science, or permission to say a social science, that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative units, which have alternative uses. Let me quickly put that on the board. That's the man, Professor Robbins. He gave a broad definition of economics. He gave a broad definition of economics. I think we need to look at that again. He said economics is science, or call it a social science, which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. Well, before we just draw the line on this definition, we need to look closely as to why the definition of Professor Robbins is widely accepted. Why can we say that his definition is broad? Well, because of some of the terms that he used, so we don't just gloss over it. Let's just take some of those terms and look into it carefully. When you talk about, look at his definition carefully, I think I should just paint it on the board. Economics is a science, or you can say social science, which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. Which have alternative uses. Okay, this is scarce means, this is alternative uses. Okay, so you can see it's a science. I'm trying to underline some major points there. So look at it carefully now. So we say that economics by Professor Robbins is a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Now we want to take it. Let's look at the word ends by its definition. Ends by its definition. Because you should understand something there. So ends by its definition, we want to paint it down. We'll say this implies human wants which are unlimited. So your ends are your human wants. And these human wants are unlimited. Okay? So we're trying to break it down so you understand what we are defining. Okay? Now, not only that they are unlimited, they are also diverse. They are also diverse. Diverse. So you have more than one wants. So it's diverse. So it can range from food, down to clothing, down to shelter, down to car, education, and what have you. So you see, ends are your unlimited wants. So that is it. Then quickly come back to one area of the definition again. It talks about scarce means. Scarce means. They are together. Scarce means. So when we say scarce means, we need to look at it carefully. So when Professor Robbins says scarce means, what does it actually mean? So scarce means that resources with which to use to satisfy these human wants, that they are limited in supply. So we have unlimited wants, which are the need, the ends, and he said, okay, you will need resources to satisfy those ends, those wants. But right now, we discover from the definition that the resources to satisfy those ends are in limited supply. That's why I said they are scarce means. So I see the means here as resources, and I see the scarce as limited. So when it said scarce means, it was talking about limited resources. So scarce, limited, and means resources. So try to understand that point. So very important. Then another thing again we can find in that definition is alternative uses. So alternative uses. Alternative uses. So now we'll see Professor Robbins mentioning the word alternative uses. Now, when we say alternative means that this implies that there's so many competing uses to which the limited resources could be put into, meaning that this scarce means the limited resources can be applied in various ways, in diverse ways. Let's go practical a little bit. Let's say we need flour. Okay, so flour is the ends. Okay, or let's just break it down a little bit. Let's say we need fries, like your egg rolls and what about the meat pie and the rest of them. Okay, but you need flour to start to produce those fries. Okay, but then we'll look at this. If I need flour, so flour becomes my end. Okay, and this flour is not easily come by. Okay, but we see that although my flour is limited in supply, you don't just have it in abundance, but something about the flour means that it has alternative uses, meaning we can use it in various ways. We can maximize the resources, which is flour. So we can use the flour. Let's say, okay, I need egg roll. Okay. So I can get my egg roll from the same flour. I can get my bread from the same flour. Okay. You can go on and on. What about your cake? And what about all the rest of them? The meat pie. So when I say alternative uses, try to understand the point. So, meaning that flour can be used to make egg roll, bread, meat pie, cake. Although this flour is in limited supply, but then it has alternative uses. So look at the definition carefully now. I believe at this junction you should understand why Professor Lloyd Robbins has come up with this definition. Please, we are still talking about economics. We want to look at the scope of economics. The scope of economics. Well, the scope of economics actually will mean the areas that is covered by the subject. And if you go on and on, it has been said that economics is a broad discipline, right? Very broad, because there is hardly any area in human activities which economics does not touch. So economics touches every aspect, very broad. If you go down, economics covered the productive activities, cover that area. Not only that, we also see that economics, in fact, from productive activities down to the industry, economics cover those areas. Talk about your commerce. You can't talk about commerce without talking about economics. So economics even go down to agriculture. Okay, economics go down to cover the services, whether direct services or indirect services. Economics cover those areas. Okay, so meaning that all productive activities involve taking one type of economic decision or the other. So before you go into any productive activity, you must take one economic decision or the other. So please understand that economics is actually a broad discipline. Okay, so we're going on from there. We're talking about other areas now, but because of our time, we want to look at economics as a science, because I'll go back to the definition of Professor Robbins. Okay, so Professor Robbins talks about his own definition, and he mentioned the word science. Why science? Why did he say that economics is a science? This is an issue we need to tackle right away. Well, what is science generally? Science is a body of knowledge. It's a body of knowledge that is acquired by going into investigation, or you acquire by thinking, or you do some scientific research. Okay, when I talk about science, we're breaking it down to your chemistry, your physics. Those are pure science. Those are physical science. Okay, but when we're talking about economics as a science, it's a different game, it's a different definition, it's a different point altogether. So economics is a science, hence the economists, they adopt the scientific approach in solving or tackling economic problems. So that's why we say by its definition that economics is a science. Why? Because the economists, they use the scientific method, the scientific procedures in tackling economic problems. That's why Professor Robbins used that definition, mentioning economics as a science. But then, when I said economics procedure, what do we mean? Very simple. There are certain procedures that is being laid down, scientific procedures in tackling problems. And one of those scientific procedures is the statement of the problem. So you state the problem, that's the first thing. Now after stating the problem, you formulate hypothesis. Formulate hypothesis. Okay? Now, formulation of hypothesis will now boil down to the fact that you collect data. So after stating the problem and you formulate hypothesis, you state down the data. After stating data, you have to do what we call organization. You organize the data, and then you go on to analyze the data. So not only that, then after organizing and analyzing the data, you quickly draw your conclusion. So you can see that economics follows all these procedures I just mentioned. Statement of the problem, formulation of hypothesis, and then collection of data, and then you organize and analyze the data, and then you draw your conclusion. So I believe that with this little point, you can go on to study your economics, and then you agree with me that economics is actually a science. But then we talked about something when I was going on. I said that we can add the word social science. Okay? So we can see economics as a social science simply because it studies human behavior. Let me jump up a little bit. Why is it that you go to the market to buy an item, a commodity, and then all of a sudden you went there and the price is hyped up or is increased? When the price is hyped, let's assume that you normally buy 50 of that quantities. Automatically your decision changes. You go down to buy, say, 30, 20, even as less than 10. Why? Because the price has been changed. The price is increased. So it has affected your decision. It has affected your behavior. So economics now goes into the study, like as to why is it that this young man that normally buys 50 of this commodity has just suddenly changed his mind. So you see, there's a science in that decision. So we study the science. Why did you behave that way? So that's why I see that it's studying your behavior. Why have you reacted? So you have reacted because there was a change in price. So that's why we say economics is a social science which studies human behavior as relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Alright, now we want to quickly go on to look at some of the basic economics concepts. Now, what are those basic economic concepts? We look at definition, meaning of economics. Now we're going to the related concepts, or we can call it the basic concepts. I'll quickly run down before we summarize. One of the basic concepts is warrants. Basic concept is warrants. Please let me use this side. Warrants. Scarcity. Let me drop these two first. Wants and scarcity. Okay, let's just put them down. Let's look at choice let's look at scale of preference. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is where we'll be discussing quickly. Wants. Okay, now I want to say wants. Wants, that term wants refers to the things which people like to get at any point in time. And you know quite well, like we said earlier, that human wants, they are unlimited. In fact, human wants are insatiable, means you cannot satisfy human wants. Very many. Okay? And wants, they are not static, because by nature, man is not static by nature. So your wants cannot be static. Why? Life is dynamic. Life is dynamic. What you wanted when you were 2 years old is not what you want right now. What you wanted when you were 10 years old is not what you want right now. And I will tell you the truth. What you will need in the next 20 to 25 years to come is not what you need right now. So life is dynamic, so our wants, they are not static, because life is not static. Okay? Now, I just said something about that. So if you go down, you can tell the truth that wants is just so many. You can talk about food, you can talk about beautiful wares, you want to get good clothes, that's it. What about shelter? What about good health? Okay, good down. What about you need education? You want to go to the university. So all these are wants. What about flashy cars? You need all of these things. All these things, we understand that wants are meant to satisfy your desire. Okay? Then quickly, we go down to what we call scarcity. What is scarcity? Scarcity means limited in supply. I've mentioned that a little bit. Okay? Scarcity means limited in supply. Okay? Relative to demand. If you look at the demand and the resources, you see that it's what? It is, your resources are scarce compared to your demand. Okay? Then we'll talk about choice. Choice. Okay? So choice is can be defined as the selection of the most pressing need out of the range of alternatives you have. So there are most pressing needs out of all the alternatives. So once you pick an item from your various ones, you have made a choice. And making that choice will lead to something. So let me summarize quickly. So I said that wants are unlimited. Please understand that. And why we have unlimited wants, we need to satisfy them. And I will discover that what we need to satisfy them is not in abundant supply. So that brought about a problem we call scarcity. Okay? And not only that, that scarcity, because it is scarce, we need to quickly make a choice to satisfy our wants. So we now make a choice. Alright? As we make a choice, quickly, the choice will now lead us to what we call scale of preference. What scale of preference? Scale of preference means you are trying to order your needs according to priorities. Okay? So in a way to summarize, what will I say? I will say that all of these meaning of economics and related concepts is trying to drive us into the study of economics, which we are going to see as we move on in this subject. So from the definition down to the basic concepts, we'll see that economics is an interesting subject that we should look into. I believe with this short introduction, we are ready to take up this subject and this discipline and go far with it in life. Happy viewing. Thank you very much.